It is Friday, and that means it's our local music day. But today, something, as I said before, or someone a bit different than what we've had before. Matt Malone's music has been described as, amongst other things, alt country, or blues, or roots, or even post-punk. In fact, having listened to it a little bit earlier this week, I'd almost go with the term country gothic. Well, Matt has joined me in the studio, and he's here with his guitar. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, Gavin.
Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And just so, sometimes it's better to show rather than tell when we're talking about music. So let's have a song that perhaps shows what you're all about.
No worries. This one's called Revelation Law. It's the second track from my debut record, which was just released 2 weeks ago. And it's a bit of a murder ballad, so I'll give it a go. I lie in my room with a Bible and a gun, in love with the moon. I'm another man on the run. I take out my whiskey and I have a little swig or two. Well, I need to be free. I'm sailing a pandemonium lagoon. Yes, and I'll be your savior from the eastern shore, and you were my lover before your revelation, Lord. I saddle up my horse before the rising sun, and I curse this day. I hope for death to come. There is no salvation for any of you and this old and lonesome stranger, as I find damnation. It's in the childless manger. Yes, and I'll be your savior from the eastern shore, and you were my lover before your revelation, Lord. I'm riding the killing floor, it's weird. I got a blacker snake among to find you in your room. Oh, that girl, you're lying there not alone. The devil has got my woman as I take out my switchblade knife and I slit her throat upon a blood-stained sky. to be your savior from the eastern shore, and you were my only lover before revelation, Lord.
Ballarat singer-songwriter there, Matt Malone. And thanks for joining us once again.
Cheers, mate.
Now, I've sort of had a crack at trying to describe what your music is. How would you describe it?
I guess it's kind of an amalgamation of a lot of different listening I've done over the years.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a kind of a foundational skeleton of country blues and kind of traditional music, which I really love.
Mm-hmm.
But then, I really love avant-garde, 20th century avant-garde music, and industrial music and metal and punk. So it's kind of like bringing a lot of these different elements in to make my own kind of unique sound, you know.
There does seem to be some elements. I almost heard a little bit of Johnny Cash about some of the stuff there, but some newer stuff as well. Who are your, I guess, musical heroes then? If there were some people that you could sort of throw up there as the ones that have been an influence.
Cash has definitely been an influence for me, for sure. It's like, especially his American recordings he did with Rick Rubin. I think his approach to kind of contemporary songs, doing like covers of Nine Inch Nails and
Extraordinary,
stuff like that was really kind of inspiring. But then, I really love Australian songwriters like Roland Howard and David McComb of the Triffids, and and then like bands like Throbbing Gristle and Psychic TV and Current 93 and Death in June. Those kind of bands that came out during the 80s, kind of a part of the underground kind of occult revival movement, was something that's been really influential as well, for sure.
Well, pure coincidence, but perhaps having you in here on Friday the 13th, maybe not such a bad thing. A nice coincidence there. You come at this as also a singer, but also a songwriter as well. Where do the songs come from within you?
I don't know if I can pinpoint the place, but I think the songs come a lot from my reading of literature and 19th century kind of symbolist poetry has been really influential on me, like Rimbaud and Baudelaire and stuff like that. But I think a lot of it comes from my experiences. Like I've had a lot of heavy experiences in my life, and I think that's kind of contributed to it as well. And I don't know, it's like and I think a lot of it comes from just listening to music and appreciating a lot of different kinds of art as well. Like Francis Bacon is probably my favourite painter, and I would say that he's definitely had some sort of like play onto the aesthetic that I go for in regards to using kind of harsher sounds and bringing in some of these more abstract elements.
I wonder if Ballarat itself, in some ways a little bit gothic. There's got a nice little haunted feel about some of the neighbourhoods around here. Does that have any influence on the style of music that you've performed?
I think all art is influenced by the context and the circumstance and place where you come from in some respects. And I think there's a real sense of the melancholic in my work. And
definitely, yes,
absolutely. People who don't live in Ballarat certainly get the heavy energy and the gravity of Ballarat in regards to the weather, and it's kind of a gloomy place, and we have kind of a very dark history here. I mean, like just across the road here, we've got all these ribbons around the cathedral in regards to the sexual abuse that Catholic priests have been doing here in Ballarat. I mean, it's like there's always an undercurrent, I think, in every town in the world in some respects, and I think Ballarat has a very shady and dark history to it.
Well, there is the history of, for example, a jail. There's a history of the Eureka Stockade as well. So
for sure.
if Ghosts are real, They're about here, aren't they?
Well, perhaps, yeah.
Are you into the occult and tarot more than just as an influence in music?
It's a way of life for me, really. I
Mm-hmm.
consider myself a practicing magician, and I'm influenced by and a part of the Thelemic movement in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
which is a really great collective of individuals doing a lot of really great art, and you know, and you know, the works of someone like Aleister Crowley, for example, has been really liberating for me to break away from the Catholicism that I was brought up with, which I consider to be, for me anyway, I mean for other people it works, but for me it was kind of a disease of the consciousness that I had to somehow get out of me in some respects, you know. So I think that occultism and Crowley in particular has been really helpful in healing me, you know, in that respect.
It's 19 minutes past 10 on ABC Local Radio, and I'm speaking with Matt Malone, who's a Ballarat singer-songwriter with a very distinctive style. Your music, I guess I'm not being unkind to describe as not being particularly mainstream. In fact, I'd imagine you consider that something of a compliment.
Um, yeah, I don't consider myself to be a pop musician, no.
Is there much support locally? And when I say locally, not just in Ballarat, but even a little bit further afield, Ararat, Daylesford, etc., for your music, or do you have to travel to actually play most of your gigs?
I play a lot in Ballarat, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Places like Babushka up on Humphrey Street, owned by Garth Horsfield, who's been around the Ballarat scene for ages with his band Immaculata, who were kind of like a gothic outfit during the 90s. And the Eastern, of course, up there on the corner of Humphrey Street, have been extremely supportive of not only myself, but of a lot of left of centre kind of musicians in Ballarat. And there's quite a thriving, vibrant scene here that, you know, without those kind of venues, perhaps wouldn't exist in its, you know, in its true free kind of form. So I really implore people out there listening to support some of these independent venues that support and cultivate original music, you know. I think it would be a shame in Ballarat if we were reduced to just having cover bands and things. I think that would be really sad, because you know.
And further afield, perhaps further west of here, is there much support?
I've played in Daylesford quite a few times, in Hepburn. There's a lot of great venues out there, and like I'm doing a whole bunch of gigs in Melbourne. I got one tonight at Dane Certificates Magic Theatre, so I'm launching my record, and I'm doing another gig down in Melbourne on May 28th in Footscray, and then I'm going up to New South Wales to do a tour. I'm going to do Newcastle, Sydney, Wollongong and Canberra, and I'm doing Adelaide as well at the end of July. So there's plenty of
You might have to
places.
find your way to Goulburn, because I think there's a fair few ghosts there. That's kind of one of those old prison towns as well. So
Okay.
a very gothic feel, I feel. We will talk about the album. It's called Six, or SIX, I think it's literally called. It was released on April 29. Does it tell a story like a lot of albums do, with a beginning and an end?
It is there is kind of a thematic kind of you know, narrative to the whole thing. It's on a sound level. I wanted to introduce there's a composer I really like called John Cage. Have you heard of him? He's a
Yes.
433. This idea of using the, you know, that you walk out in the street now, and if you open your ears, that everything potentially is music. You know, every sound in a certain order can be musical. So it's like, in a very simple way, I wanted to bring that onto the record. So the record starts out with a recording of a bonfire that I did at a certain ritual, and then it kind of leads into this very kind of masculine kind of piece, which is called Maldoror, which is based on the kind of inspired by the 19th century text by Lautréamont. And then it kind of plays through these kind of my philosophical you know, outlook in some respects, and then returns to the kind of feminine idea of the water. And if you pick up the vinyl, it's been purposefully kind of divided between, one side's called will and the other side's called love. And it's like the will side's more about kind of my ideas about on a philosophical level, and then the love side's more about these narratives of you know, the extremities of love, from you know, the position of the tender kind of longing and a more conventional kind of view, with this other attitude of love, which I think sometimes can be caught up, which is, murder and these kind of things, So,
A lot of ballads by the sound of it.
yeah.
Do you have another one you can play for us now?
Yes, I'm going to play, it's on the side of love as well, but it's on the more, more conventional side. It's called The Star. I'll give it a play, Gavin.
Thank you very much. Matt Malone.
Came to me, it was on the street, with your hand out, flowing long. Your eyes were a wound, lamented in an ancient song. And I would wait a lifetime to taste the sorrow on your face, as now I caress your throat with the lips of a traitor's embrace. Now won't you come and hold me within your hands of silver? And now the time has gone, you're my lover, and we return on to the never. Yes, and we return to the never, and we return, well, on to the never. And as I hold your hand, in your veins flickers desire to succumb and absorb your flesh in our bed of a funeral fire. Now baby, don't you ever fear for that little child that you're hiding inside. For I am the sun, and I'm climbing your morning tide. Now won't you come and hold me within your hands of silver? And now the time has gone, you're my lover, and we return on to the never. Yes, and we return to the never, and we return, and we eternally recur, and we return and return and return. The star, my dear, and you are the star, my dear, and you are the star, my dear, and we're flying. Oh yes, and we're dying. You are the star, my dear, and you are the star, my dear, and you are the star, my dear, and we're flying. Oh yes, and we're dying.
Thank you very much for the Matt. That was a very pretty song.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Ballarat singer-songwriter, and the album SIX is available through Heart of the Rat Records. Where can we get that album from?
It's now on JB Hi-Fi. You can go into Heart of the Rat Records itself, which is if you go into next to the Block Arcade, actually next to Frank Garley's, I think. You go in there and go upstairs, and it's their business is called Elite Graphic Design. If you go in there, Heart of the Rat will sell you one. Otherwise, come to the shows.
Indeed.
Which is one tonight in Melbourne at Dane Certificates Magic Theatre.
Thank you very much for joining us once again.